Okay. So just come into the standing position, feet hip width apart, toes pointing forwards as much as possible. You may find that your feet turn out slightly. That's fine. And shouldn't be a massive problem, but try not to let them sort of stray right out. And have your weight a little bit forwards in your feet so that you get a sense of almost about to sort of take a step, I suppose. And at the same time, just allowing your hips to settle back, like you're sort of perched on the edge of a table or on a wall. Sometimes feel that lower back, hips and buttocks overhang slightly, again, almost like you sit on top of a fence or something like that. Try not to stiffen up in your knees and start to turn gently in the middle of your body, this area between hips and waist. And let the movement there move your arms here. You may find there's a little bit of movement of your weight side to side in one direction or another. If you're familiar with these postures, you'll know how to go about correcting that. If you're new to this, just go nice and easy. Don't force anything. If you can make corrections comfortably, then fine. But listen to your body. It's one thing to have an idea of what we might think of as the ideal posture. It's quite another to actually be able to sustain that. Remember that we've all developed habits of movement, standing and sitting that over the years have become quite deeply embedded. So muscles and tendons and ligaments have adjusted to those things, and it just takes time for the body to recondition. And there's nothing gained in forcing something or holding the posture that becomes uncomfortable. As you turn it in the center of your body, just try and get a sense for movement that comes out of that in your back, front of your body, again, shoulders and arms. And this is one of the key things that we want to be aware of and to work with. We sometimes talk about this idea of an energy flowing through our bodies. We're looking for that to be free-flowing, harmonious. This brings us back to posture that for one reason or another creates barriers is undesirable. And again, that could even be true of the ideal posture. We grow into these things gradually over a period of time. It may help you just to focus on your breathing if that's comfortable for you. Breathing is a form of movement. You may notice a change there. Generally speaking, try not to tense up, and in particular, just noting how your body supports itself. So quite clearly, our legs are a major structure in the body. They're the things that support us from the ground upwards, so legs and feet are always going to be important. We want our back to have a sense of supporting the front of our bodies so that there's less need for holding on to tightness in belly, solar plexus, chest and shoulders. Perhaps a little less obviously, there's a support from within the body, from our skeleton and the surrounding area. And what we want to try and do is to bring that part of our body, hence the whole of our body in the end, a little bit more in line with the pull of gravity. If I can show you with this, imagine pole going up through my body, then if it was leaning over, then it's more likely to fall, and anything to do with muscles or tendons, it's definitely going to tense up, it's going to stiffen up. Whereas if I can find that kind of theoretical midpoint, which is obviously quite difficult, particularly with a pole like this, it's not flat at the bottom, then I'm more likely to be able to begin to release that time. This is an ongoing project in Tai Chi after over 40 years of practice. It's something I'm still working on. Just trying to bring ourselves to a position where we're not in conflict with the pull of gravity, but rather gravity pulling us down into the ground and significantly drawing our center of gravity downwards. The lower our center of gravity, the more in Tai Chi terms we can root down, then the more we're stable. So the combination of alignment and rooting, which really go together, actually help to create the environment within which we begin to lose some of the tightness, some of the stiffness in our body. And again, that leads to a fluidity of movement, both internally and of course externally. You may notice a rhythm in the movement developing. And this is something that can lead us to another important aspect of the overall practice, which is this feeling of connection in our body, that rather than foot down there and a hand up here and so on and so forth, we get a sense that our bodies are one unit. Again, this has an impact on our circulation. It also means that we start to sort of feel a little bit more in touch with our bodies, again, in a very harmonious ways. We're told poetically by some of the old writings in Tai Chi that when one part of our body is in motion, our whole body is. And then just my hands go. Just turn the hand palm out, raise them up, no higher than shoulder height, maybe lower than that. Notice that my elbows are hanging down, a bit more open across your chest and upper back. Notice whether in raising your arms, you've lifted your shoulders or your hips. Try and get that sense again of your hips sinking back. Good now. Your hands drop down. Turn one foot out, step straight forward. Notice that I've kept the width of my step. I haven't taken a narrow step, but it's relatively short. And then just moving your weight forwards and backwards and let your body turn with you. So again, turning in the center of your body. Again, people with a bit more experience, you might want to reflect on whether it's your weight moving that turns your center or the other way around, your center turning that moves your weight. But again, if you're just starting up, best to think of your weight moving so that we begin to understand that our bodies turn quite naturally in the direction that our feet are pointed. So that little bit of an angle between your feet causing the turning in the center and again up into your upper body, shoulders and arms following that movement. And again, if you can, just let the movement settle into a nice steady rhythm. And then on the other side, and check your stance. The reason we have our feet hip width apart is so that our hips and our shoulders feel supported. We don't feel as though we're balancing on a tightrope or a narrow plank crossing the stream or something like that. That sort of posture will automatically cause us to stiffen up a little bit. To come back to the parallel stance, again, feet hip width apart, and just to think a little bit more about this alignment of our body with the pull of gravity. So, a bit closer. Just pivoting from your ankles, let your body sway forwards and backwards. Feel like a tree just gently swaying in a breeze. Nothing very dramatic. This is, again, your whole body moving. I'll show you once again with the pole. If you imagine the pole going up through my body here, then this is what will be happening there. Not this. But trying as much as possible to keep that alignment of your body. And just trying to find the balance point. Again, it's quite difficult and it's not necessarily a fixed thing. It will change over the period of time. But once again, looking for that feeling that we get when our body comes more into line with the pull of gravity. Excuse me when I just get. So we don't want to get into a fight with gravity. If we're leaning over one way or another, we will cause tightness and stiffness. The more we can come into line, then once again we create this environment for movement. So just see if you can get a sense of that middle ground. And as you do, coming once again to settle, and then letting your hips drop back a little bit. Be careful of your knees and again let gravity pull your hips back and down. So that feels your center of gravity dropping. And when you push up, don't get the sense of lifting up your center of gravity. We call it rooting down. And like a plant with its roots in the ground, we expand out of that and then contract back in. Your hands come around as though you're cradling the ball. Push up. And as you do, feeling the expansion in the upper part of your body, pushing your elbows out, and that will draw your hands up as though you're lifting the ball. Turn your hands over, hips sink down, and you're pressing the ball down. So you're pressing the ball down. Pushing up, feel your body expanding through your back, the front of your body, and sink. Pushing up, and so expanding and contracting. So we still have a rhythm, albeit a slow one. Potentially that sense of connection that I talked about earlier, relating to the rhythm. Trying to maintain a good focus of our attention so that we can start to bring our intention into the movement. Mind and body overlapping and engaging together in these practices. Be aware of any areas that feel a bit stiff or tight. Go easy on those areas, don't push hard against them. One of the ways that we engage our intention is through the use of imagery, and one very common image that we use in Tai Chi is that we move as though the air around us were thicker than normal, as though we're in water. Or maybe, if you can imagine walking into a breeze, just feeling that slight sense of resistance. This causes our body to move with a little bit more coordination and a little bit more strength, what we refer to in Tai Chi as inner strength. It's like the difference between if there's a bag on the floor and you're expecting it to be light or expecting it to be heavy, and you're prepared to pick up the weight, you don't realize somebody's emptied it, you lean forward, you go to pick the bag up, oh, there's no longer a weight in there. So our expectations of movement and what's happening around us can have a very big influence on our bodies and the way that we move. And generally speaking, against resistance, we would tend to move in a more sort of total way, that sense of connection in. This is what we're looking to try and build in Tai Chi. This time, as you sink down, turning your hands palm out. So they come out to your sides, no higher than shoulder height. And when you go down about level with your hip, this is the exercise, the wild goose. Quite an evocative image with this one, as many of the exercises do have. But if you're not moved by an image, don't worry, there's a whole range of different images that we use. Not all of them are going to be meaningful to you. Still aware of that alignment of your skeleton, and particularly people with a bit more experience, with the sense that the movement is coming from that deeper aspect of your body, as well as from the feet and the legs. And then letting your hands drop down, crossing in front of your belly, push up. This is called parting the clouds. Not a stretch next to my arm, just a little bit bent. Just a feeling of opening, of expansion to the back, front of your body, very gently. Trying to feel the connection from feet to hips, from hips up through your back to your shoulders and into the front of your body, to your arms and your hands. Doesn't really matter which hand is in front when they cross over. But again, those of you more familiar with the movements, you might want to try just swapping them around occasionally so you don't get stuck in one way of doing things. So parting the clouds, one more of these. Let your arms drop down, feel the weight of your arms hanging from the shoulders. And then as you push up, just on one side, your elbow being pushed out, drawing your fingers up. Roll your fingers into a hollow fist and rotate your arm. Pull down. This is dragon plucks the stars from the sky. So quite a sort of exotic image really with this one. I sometimes describe it as though we're plucking a soft fruit from a tree. So you don't want to grip your fingers tightly. You sort of wrap them around, rotate your arm to break the stem, and then pull down. Just move your arm as high as it's comfortable moving. But again, elbows still a little bit bent. We should always try and move in Tai Chi, feeling as though we could have moved a little bit further. Okay, your body expanding and do one more of these on each side. Remember, if it's helpful, that image of moving through water, it encourages a softening in our body. Knowing quite intuitively that a stiff body is harder to move. And just rest in this position for a moment. Next couple of exercises, we don't go up and down actively, but we still maintain this feeling, as I described earlier, lower back, hips, buttocks overhanging slightly. So we're still allowing gravity to move unimpeded through our body. If we stand like this with stiff knees, stiff hips, then it will block the movement. If our knees are stiff, for instance, we quite often feel that our knees are trying to hold the weight of our body up, which is good for the knees. We want the feeling of gravity downwards, and we want to feel that our body's response to that is a sort of sense of pushing up. It's a bit like when you get a ball and you push it down into water, you feel the water, buoyancy of the water pushing. Bring your hands to your sides, just by the side of your hips, and then they come around in front a little bit, pushing up. So you're just pressing into a low ceiling, keeping your hands a little bit in front of your body, not pulling them back. And let your hands come back down your sides, and then pushing up, elbows dropping. So there's a natural sideways movement that develops and back. So your body expands out of that center part between hips and waist and contracts back into. Notice that when it expands, there's also perhaps an increased pressure in the soles of our feet. Like a balloon expanding and contracting in that part of the body. This time you'd start with the push up. But as you push out, you also turn in the center of your body. Redirect your arms and back. So that's in hips and waist, turning the other way. And back. And then facing forwards and pushing out. And back. It's called pushing in full direction. Just trying to maintain a nice even pace of movement. Okay, for people more familiar with these exercises, really focusing on that sense of expansion and contraction from your center. In that movement, move your arms for you, and recognizing the significance of the turning in the center part of your body. We're literally moving from our own center. That center that is dropping towards the ground. It's that center that picks up on that cycle of movement of energy, downward with the pull of gravity, upwards response from your body. It begins to be transmitted into the center and directed, shaped through the center of the body. So that area between hips and waist becomes an increasingly important focus for our attention. One more round. Then let your hands drop. And the next feeling of expansion, let that push one arm out, elbow bent, and it just curves up until it's really in line with your nose, again, slightly in front of your body, straight down that center line. Again, so a half circle is being traced. And then if it's comfortable, once again, from this position, you can do a turn. One more time on this side. Change sides. Each of these movements has its own sort of unique resonance within our body, patterns of movements that we begin to associate with these exercises. And of course, they also share a lot of common ground. The rhythms, the overall sense of flow, the method of doing it are common to all of these exercises. But we begin to notice after a while how different movements really create almost like different pathways of movement within the body. Once again, if it's comfortable, add in the turn. In time, those internal movements become the really crucial thing. And then rather than waiting for them to be created by the external exercise, it starts to turn the other way around. Good. Now, still that focus of attention here in the middle of your body. Sinking down and pushing up. Notice that your pelvis remains level, and so this helps us to keep an upright stance. You change that for the next two exercises, so please go nice and carefully. Be careful with your knees and your back. Recognize that I'm going to do these exercises quite big, so you can see what I'm doing, hopefully, but that doesn't mean that you have to do them to that degree. As you sink down, pushing your hips back, keeping your back relatively straight, and then from here, just let gravity draw your hips down. Feel how that brings your head up, and you push up. So don't think of this as being a lean forward, but rather a push back with your head. And then dropping down, bringing your spine back into line with gravity and pushing up. This time, as you push up, let that move your arms beginning to swing out. And then as your hips go back, they get drawn forward. This is called rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. And just notice how when we allow it to, gravity, rather than pulling us down, will, by drawing your hips down, bring you to an upright stance with a lot less strain than we normally associate with being straight. We start to get this very open quality in our body. Once again, contributing to the flow of energy. So rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. This time though, as you sit back, bring your hands in front of your belly, palm down, turn horizontally, push your hips back, exaggerating all of this still, swing your hips around, and then come back to the center as you let your hips drop down. Change direction. This is called polishing the table. Again, allowing yourself to come to the upright position. In the back, you can see my hips go right back. Again, very careful with this. Taking your time. So we don't force ourselves to be in line with the pull of gravity. We just allow our bodies to come naturally into that as much as we can. And we actually use gravity to help us rather than, again, getting into a big fight with it. One more round. Good. And then just lovely. So when we can do this, when we can get the alignment of our body without having to strain, that enhances the flow of energy. And one of the principal dynamics in Tai Chi is this relationship between the downward movement of gravity and the response of our body pushing up. Again, it's like, you know, if you push down through water, even with your hand, you don't have to have the ball or the block of wood. You can feel the push up, and that gets, if you like, shaped through the center of our body. Mostly in these exercises we're upright. Those last two are an obvious exception, and mostly we're trying to be fairly clear about our posture, not kind of sway around too much, shall we say. But the next exercise is going to be slightly different. There's a little bit more freedom for hips and shoulders here, and can point us a movement, a quality of movement in the body that later will bring back in to the more defined postures that we work with in Tai Chi. To begin with, just moving your weight from side to side a little bit. Not too far, right out here. You can see I'm leaning over. I'm going to be straining. Now, unusually, we sink down and then we allow ourselves to be pushed up. So we sort of come up in the middle and then down on the opposite side. The movement we're going to do is called bear play, supposedly imitating the movements of a bear. Thinking about your hips now. As you go into your left foot, push your left hip forward a little bit, and then pull back as you go into your right. And again here. So now you can see your left hip is making a bit of a circle. Same thing with your right hip here. So if you were to place your hands on your hips, you get this kind of effect coming up in the middle, down. So your hands are now also moving in those alternating circles. Turn your hands palm down, take them away from the hips a little bit, and just let them begin to build those circles a little bit. Rolling your shoulders around a little bit, expanding in the right side of your body, pressing down. expanding in the left side of your body and pressing down. So a little bit of a swing in hips and shoulders. Don't go too far, otherwise you'll end up falling over and tensing up before you do that. So we keep that fluidity of the movement and just be particularly aware of back and spine as you do this, almost like your back will receive a nice full massage. Not moving so far as to create a stiffening or straining in the body. The bear play. So bear play can actually help us to get a sense of that movement, that energy in our back and spine. And obviously, yeah, that can be quite difficult, very dependent on posture. If we're out of line with the pull of gravity, we can often find ourselves really stiffening up in the back. We go nice and easy. This is a good exercise to practice for that, but keep in the back of your mind the basics of the posture, rooting down, not straining against the other gravity. So this is bear play. Now come into your right, so mirror my movement, pressing down here. This time, turn a little bit to your right. You can see my hand going out. Turn your hand, arm up, move across. This time, try not to come up in the middle. Sink down into your left leg. Let your right heel come off the ground. See where my hand ends up in line with the shoulder. Turn it palm down, turn your left hand palm up, push across. And this is called hitting the ball in front of the shoulder. Expanding in the left side and contracting. Feel the push from your right leg, expanding in the right side. You may find here that your feet do quite naturally turn out, that's fine. And don't lose that sense of movement in your back and hips, shoulders that hopefully you got from the last exercise, but you're no longer kind of swinging them around in the same way. If I come to my left, well, to your left, and I kind of swung my shoulders around, suddenly I'm in danger of falling. So we want to feel those movements very much internally. We want to feel them moving our arms. It's quite a dynamic, quite a strong image for this exercise, hitting the ball in front of the shoulder. So it gives us something about what we call this internal strength. It's an unusual combination in Tai Chi, a softening of the body, but something that reveals a sort of natural, cultivated strength from within rather than from the outside. A process that is aided by images like moving through water, or moving against a gentle breeze. Sometimes say we feel as though the air was thicker around us. One more on each side. Lovely. And give you an extra shake. Now we're going to change the stance. We're going to go once again into that forward stance that we used a little bit earlier. Turn your left foot out. You can play around with this angle so you're not stuck in that angle. And step straight forwards. Again, you can see the space, you see the background bit between my legs. I haven't stepped to here. And then again, just begin to move your weight as you did before. A little bit more accurately this time. Try and get about 6% of your weight into the front foot and maybe about 70% into your back. As much as possible, your upper body facing forwards. Just be careful making any adjustment to that because you don't want to twist your back up and you don't want to twist your knees up. So if you try and sort of face forwards and you're feeling it's pulling on your body, a slight angle here isn't a problem. So now we're learning to move with that sense of root. Try not to come up and down, very much using your legs. Keeping your center of gravity low and just noticing if you have a tendency to want to lean forwards. It's very common for all sorts of reasons. We don't always pay a great deal of attention to what's going on in the lower part of our body, our feet and our legs. If we can begin to learn to transfer our weight without losing the alignment, without losing our root, then it means that our general sense of movement becomes more stable, more fluid. Sit into your back foot, just raise your front toes a little bit, feel a bit more weight will go down through into the back foot. Turn the front foot out a little bit, go forwards, pushing the back knee forwards, and again settling down. Try not to angle at this point, keeping your pelvis level as much as possible. Think of your pelvis as being like a bowl of water that you're carrying. You don't want to tilt it because you'll start to spill the water. And if you start to do that, then it starts to get worse, doesn't it? You try and adjust, and sooner or later the water's going everywhere. So rooting down, maintaining the alignment of your body. These are the things that allow us to remain stable in movement. Don't think of balance, don't think of being stable. And so this time, see if you can just bring your rear foot in. You can put the toes down there for a moment. Step back. Be careful about placing the foot, bringing the front foot in. When you step forwards, put your heel down, lower your toes, we plant the foot. When you step back, it's going to be same idea, but the ball of your foot goes down first, then your heel, then your weight moves. So you're stepping onto thin ice. And you're just going to use the foot to test the ice before you commit your weight. And again, shake out. So do that with the other foot forward. So start by turning your right foot out a little bit. Step forward with your left foot. The length of step is about the same as the width, but as you drop down a little bit more, you're more comfortable in this rooted position. You'll find it can be a little bit longer. And then just moving your weight. You want to feel that you can comfortably move, first of all, that 60% or 70% of your weight, and eventually more of your weight without having to strain. So if I was on a very long lunge, I'd get to here. If I wanted to move this foot, I would be, it would be a bit like that. Whereas here, all I have to do is push my back knee forwards, and I shift slightly into the front foot, and I can bring the foot in. We're doing the same thing again, beginning to raise toes and heel so that the amount of weight flowing down through your leg into your foot gradually increases. Again, always very careful of your knees. Try not to lock your knees or your hips. So you get that feeling of your weight dropping into your foot. And all the time, just trying to maintain your alignment with the pull of gravity. You can bring the front foot in and step through. And then again on this side. So again from the side here, what I want to try and do is here, I raise my toes, I bring my foot in. If I do this, leaning backwards, then everything starts to become a bit of a struggle. You start to stiffen up. Moving while rooting down. Now this time, either forwards or backwards, bring the foot in and then take a step. Planting your foot. And then changing direction. And move the feet back. Shake. Now, once again, have your right foot forwards. Check your stance. Starting with your weight in your back foot, arms hanging down by your sides. Again, aware of the weight of your arm. Move your weight forwards, leaving your hands behind as though you were in water. But as you settle in the front foot, let the arms swing through. Move the weight back, arms hanging behind just a little bit. And so your weight drawing your arms through, the movement called fisherman castanet. Nice smooth wave-like movement through your body. Your arms being moved by what's happening between your feet and your hips. And again, maybe just aware of sensations of expansion and contraction through your back and sides and so on. So this transfer of your weight forwards and backwards is another one of the key energetic dynamics. And what I said about, yielding, aligning with the pull of gravity, allowing gravity to work through you, through the upward response from your body. We've now added another dimension to the movement, forwards and backwards, trying to maintain our alignment as we do. So I'm going into your front foot. As you settle into your front foot, turn a little bit to your left. Let that swing your arms out, sink back, settle into your back foot, turn your body, drawing your arms through, turn a little bit more to your right towards the front foot, swing your arms down. This is called Wind Blows the Willows. The willow tree is an interesting image for us in Tai Chi. It said that the willow tree has very deep roots. Just a very strong but supple wood that bends in the wind but doesn't break. And here we have the whole combination that we find runs through the entire Tai Chi system. The movement is rooted in nothing, transmitted to our legs, directed, controlled, shaped through the center of our body, and expressed in our arms. And if you're comfortable with this, once again, you could try just stepping in, maybe just raising the leg if that's comfortable for you, If you find you're wobbling around, then just leave your toes down. Either way, hips still hanging back, not straining in your shoulders. Now have your left foot forwards, starting again with fisherman castanet. Straight forwards and backwards. So you'll move forward. And then turning into windrows to willows. Stepping in, maybe raising your leg if that feels appropriate. It's not worth straining to do that. Whether your leg is up in the air or your toes are down, there's just a moment when you feel almost like you're hovering slightly. And then, once again, either forwards or backwards, take a few steps through. This is called dragonfly skin to water. Quite evocative image. Change direction. One more time. And rubbing your hands together. And with the palms of your fingers, tapping lightly over your face. Begin to work up over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder, and your arm, and the other side, on your back. And around your hips, your legs. Light on your belly, and onto the upper part. Our final exercise just brings us back to these basic qualities of alignment, rooting. So back into the parallel stance. It's called Embrace Tiger, Return to the Mountain. Just sinking down, pushing up, starting a little bit like the wild goose, but now feeling the pull on your hips and your shoulders, bringing your hands around so as you're holding the ball against your chest. Your elbows drop and then pressing the ball down, just coming back to the mountain, which for me is, I love the image of the qualities of Tai Chi, strength, the spaciousness, the stillness. Easy and gently. Just a moment of resting here at the bottom of the movement. feeling the pull of gravity through your body, and how that awareness of gravity and the willingness to bring our bodies into line to allow gravity through actually has a very calming effect on both mind and body. One more time. Just coming back to the standing position. Let your arms hang down by your sides. Close your eyes. Just take a couple of slow, gentle breaths. Thank you very much for watching and joining in, everybody.